Hi everyone, happy Women History Month. My name is Lisa Huang-North and I'm currently a product lead at Planet, a space technology company that's using space to help life on Earth. In celebration of Women History Month, I've had the amazing opportunity to speak with 8 product leaders over the past few months. And today, I'd love to share their stories with you in this 8-part interview series, which I'm calling The Paths to Product. Today, we'll get to hear the story of Tina Nguyen, who is currently the AI Strategic Group Product Manager at US Bank. I have Tina Nguyen with me today to share her paths to product. Tina has a varied career starting from research to personal banking to project analyst to data sciences, marketing, and finally product management. So welcome, Tina. I'm so excited to have you with us today.
Thank you so much, Lisa, for having me on. I'm super excited and honored to be here.
I love to hear about your path into product. You've really taken unconventional path and we'd love to hear more. Please share.
Yes, of course. I actually came to the United States as an international student when I was 14 by myself.
Wow.
It really helped me define who I am as a woman and helped me to say, yeah, I get to choose what I want to do and I get to be empowered. And I see a lot of people along my path to where I am today. It's not really a one woman kind of path. I must say my path to products was a lot of people giving me a chance to be where I am today. Started high school 14, finished high school at 16 and started college right away. After that, in college, I studied mathematics and international business. As a Vietnamese, my mother would be saying, honey, if you study this path, and who's going to marry you? And I'm like, what? Are you kidding me? I thought about it. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to make nerds cool. I'm going to make what we do fun. And I pursued that thinking. I finished my undergrad at Augsburg University, a small liberal arts school in Minneapolis. And then as an international student, it was very, very difficult. So I don't know if you know a lot, but now, especially in our
as
field,
an international student as well. So H1B, F1 visa,
OPT.
Yep.
You know it. And,
Yep.
So maneuvering all of that stuff, looking for jobs, it's like, do you require sponsorship? You check that and your heart just drops. Kudos to all the international students and H1B out there. And I know now in our field, we have so many of them. Do not give up. There's light at the end of the tunnel. I saw that. But at the same time, surround yourself with the people who will say that to you every day during your process, because there's so many times within my 17 years of pursuing my green card, there's so many times I wanted to give up. But none of my friends in my community allow me to do so. And I got my green card last year through my work.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Afterwards, you can just puff up your chest and say, yeah, I did it, right? But then you look around, it's like, no, I have a whole group of people helping me to get there. Sidetracked, going back to product. Went back to school for marketing for my MBA because I really wanted to learn how people are buying things the way that they do. That's where my marketing strategy and data science and my job came in later down the road. I get a job as a personal banker. That is through the president of Augsburg University connecting me with my then former mentor, who was the vice chair of US Bank at that point. And he's just like, Tina, we'll start you from the bottom, the beginning, but that's the best place where you need to be is you learn the whole entire bank and the customer. So he's like, choose a branch, choose a date, and you start. As a personal banker in my entire life, I'm like, I don't want to do sales. I don't know anything about US banking. Why am I doing this? I remember that. I went to banker training school the first few days. They were talking about CDs and stuff. I didn't know banks sell CDs. That's so cool. So you learn it's a certificate of deposit, not a CD where you listen to music. From there, I learned how to be a banker. I learned how to work with customers. I became the top banker within the first year of being a banker there. As women, we never give up. We just don't. As a banker, we have lead lists and all that stuff where you're supposed to call customers, call them, and kind of deepen the relationship, become the central financial advisor for our customers. But I started asking questions like, why would this customer choose this product? Why do we call this customer first versus the other customers? My branch manager at that time was like, well, Tina, I can't answer those questions, but you can go into corporate and learn that. To make a move from a retail into corporate was very difficult. And I didn't know that until I actually made the move. Again, a lot of people said no. So I pursue through the way I know how is I just stalk the crap out of my future manager. So I figure out from a job description I saw, and I make connections, talk to the recruiter. And if this recruiter won't tell me, I talk to the recruiter colleagues until another recruiter tell me, here's the hiring manager's name. Then I send an email to the hiring manager every month. I send him an email. And every month with that email, I put in, news and everything that I think would be important to him, right? And I would say, here's what I've done, and here's what's going on, and here's what I see from my current job here. Just give me one meeting with you. After about 6 months, I think he got tired of me, and then he's like, fine, I'll meet with you.
It's like, I got to meet this Tina in person. She's been sending me all these amazing resources, right? Like, it's the least I can do.
Perfect. That's a good way to think about it. He's like, in our annual review after my first year with him, he's like, you are the most persistent girl, a woman I've ever met in my life. I'm like, yeah, thank you. So I met with him, we talked, and then he's like, okay, you don't have any experience in analytics. You only have school, right? And school and real life is completely different. But you are a retail person. So viewing all my emails, I'm like, hey, I know how customers think. I know how there's a gap between the strategy team, the product team, and how customer actually utilize what you produce there. I will be able to help you see that. And specifically, here's an example today or of last month or something like that. So he's like, I saw that you actually saw what I didn't know before. So I'm going to give you a chance. Okay, you start next month. And that's how I started into the product role, but more of a product strategy role. So I moved into this world, the small business group. My first year goal was to really connect the dots between the product that group produced and how bankers use that product, and actually how customer also then utilize the products, right? There was a triangle that are not connecting, but I saw the triangle. The biggest skill I have is to see the entire universe of data and points and everything else, and I can connect the dots and create some kind of a painting there. And with that, I hold on to that to the next path. So after being strategy role for a while, supported the data piece, doing a lot of coding, doing a lot of dirty work that other people don't want to do, right? Because you're the newbies and you have to prove yourself. I started to really go down the mathematical background of mine. Within product strategy, you do coding, you do technical things, but you also have to focus a lot on predictive modeling too, which is a skill set that I learned in statistics class back in school, but we didn't utilize that. So I started asking more questions about statistics and predictive modeling, where that team didn't have an expertise in. And then my former manager then just pointed me to the modeling team in our company, said, why don't you ask that manager? Because they're the one that built the models for us.
Right.
So then I did the same thing. I just harassed my manager for a while. And afterwards, he's like, fine, move into my team, even though you don't have any predictive
I'm beginning
modeling.
to see a pattern here.
Yes. Meanwhile, every year I continue to press. You always have a goal in mind. My goal is green card. But before green card is H-1B, right?
Yep.
So it's at that layer of complications. And I'm telling this because a lot of our women in the women in products group, as you know, will have to go through this, is always keep that goal in mind, because whatever you're going to get, your salaries might not be as high as it should be and all that stuff. Focus on the big picture. Whatever that is, you want to get to some point, just don't fight the little battle.
And keeping your North Star matrix in mind.
Yes.
Green card.
Green card. So from there, I started really moving into predictive modeling as a data scientist. I learned everything on the job, building models, data scrapping, data feature engineering, and validations and all that kind of thing on the job. And again, it was because my former manager gave me a chance. I started as a data science coordinator because he's like, what are we going to put you in? Because you can't code yet. You can't do all this stuff. You know data analytics, but predictive modeling is a completely different field. My initial position, which we created for me, was really to help the team from ground zero. So I was his employee zero in this new team that he built from ground zero. How do we, number one, build better models? Number two, explain what a predictive model is to the rest of the company who's just like, what are we going to do with this, right? Yeah. And number three is provide a good user experience from beginning to end. So that was my job. So I didn't know anything about product management at that point. You know, I didn't know that is what it's supposed to be called. We call it a coordinator or a strategist. At first, you know, I took a look at the entire inventory of all of our models. And then I go to each of the business line partners that we work with and ask them, how are you using these? And they'd be like, well, it's just a line in one of our system, blah, blah, blah. And I look, I'm like, can I see the code? Good thing I know how to code. So then they're like, okay. So they give it to me. I'm like, well, you're using it incorrectly. A predictive model does this. And they're like, oh, we didn't even know that's what it's supposed to do.
So you're really instrumental in doing that translation, helping the business stakeholder understanding in their terms and seeing the value your team would bring if they were using your tools correctly or using your product correctly.
I think being a product manager, you always have to ask yourself, what are all the assumptions our users are having in their head? And also, what are the assumptions the developers have when they build this, right? The assumption is the user gonna know exactly how to build, how to use this thing. And on the other side, the assumption is, oh yeah, well, you know, they build it for campaign purpose, blah, blah, blah. So they already took into consideration what we needed to be done before. Like, you guys, have you ever met each other and talked to each other? Like,
so have you gone into a room together versus just crossing wires, thinking you know what the other person wants, but never actually chatting to them about it?
Yes, and that's just the simplest case, right? Because if you have vendor on the side too, if your products involve vendor, holy cow, do you even know what the vendor's doing? I mean, they're in the middle, and then you receive that, and you're like, I order a cow, and yet the developer built me a pig, and somehow the vendor adds some tail and something else, and then now I get, I don't know, a chair or something like that. Like, what the heck happened?
I tend to be a visual thinker. So the analogy that always comes to mind is that story of, you know, the three blind men who they're touching different parts of the elephant. And when you're describing, so what does an elephant feel like? Someone would describe the trunk of the elephant. They're like, oh, you know, it feels like a long pipe, right? Kind of something else. And someone would be holding the legs and say, like, oh, it's like a tree trunk. It's really big and I can't get my hand around it. And if someone's holding onto the tail, like you described, it's like, oh, but it's really light. I don't know what you mean by wider than a tree trunk, or where everyone's looking from their vantage point. Oftentimes there are blind spots. Whatever title it is, you're clearly already doing the product manager job, just being the virtue of translating and connecting the dots.
Yeah, so that's it. I think product management is very simple to explain. I think a lot of people are just like, oh my God, do you not have to know everything about the product? What is product marketing manager versus just a product manager versus a software manager, like developer, or versus like a portfolio manager or program manager? I'm like, okay, guys, what you have to do is just connect the dots, challenge all the assumptions of all the people are in the middle of this product that is supposed to be built. Now, if you don't even think there's a product there, that's an issue because there's a product there that nobody knows what the heck it is. So what your job as a product manager is, number one, identify the product. And then from there, looking at all the connection point and clear it out. That's it. Very simple.
I love it. It does sound simple when you put it that way. I noticed, as you mentioned, each step of the way where you picked up different skills you learned on the job, whether that be coding, which is more technical, or the strategy aspect of thinking of it from a corporate versus like a retail personal banker, and even to the end where you had to learn predictive modeling and what that means versus data analytics. Can you share a little bit of how you pick up these skills? Was it internal training? Did you, go back to school for your MBA so that you got that? Or was it just literally on the job of working with engineers and seeing how they did it?
Yeah, great question. And it's all. So I think where I am today is a combination of very persistent. So persistency is important. Curiosity. I was curious about everything. I asked questions. If somebody don't have an answer for you, that's a great place to be. That's where you can learn more and expand more, and they get to learn more and expand more. And that's where the growth opportunity is. I learn a lot on the job. That's kind of come with the job. You should be able to learn on your job. And also mentor. Highly, highly recommend. I have, I think, 6 or 7 mentors right now, but throughout my entire career, I have multiple. And a lot of people is like, you have one mentor and that's great. I'm like, no, because you are a dynamic person. Number one, to be good at what I'm doing, I need to know model risk management. So that's a risk and a government compliance place. I have a mentor for that one. I have to know about predictive modeling and AI and machine learning. So I have a mentor in that field to help me. I also have to know how to de-stress leading all of this stuff, how to make my calendar, how to be more organized. I have a mentor to do that one. So my mental health also, and then leadership. I have mentors at the higher level to teach me how to be a good leader and inspire other people. So just think about you as a person and just think about your product. What are the places where you're weak at, or not just weak, but where you can grow is where you need to find the people who help you. It's never a one person place. So I learned through that, obviously through school. So I went back for my MBA. I went back for another master degree in system engineering. I'm starting another master degree at Georgia Tech in January.
Girl, that's incredible. That's amazing.
So learning, you just keep learning. The moment you stop learning is where your life will be a little bit sad.
And I think you touch on a really good point there, which is I have found for a lot of product managers, right? We self-select into this life. And your point about grit, your point about curiosity, your point about continuous lifelong learning, a really big piece there about mentorship is knowing when to ask for help and knowing how to find support and resources so that it can keep pushing you to be a better person and become more well-informed or acquire skills and even helping to identify those gaps in the knowledge, which you may or may not know at any given point in time. Because I think that addresses really nicely around the kind of key skills and qualities any product manager will need to succeed in their job, regardless of tiny startup, big tech company, banking, or any other industry.
You touch a good point using the right word, succeed. What is the definition of success? And I think a lot that I learned to be where I am today is through a lot of my failure, but learn to fail quick and then from there move on is how I define my success. Yeah, I thank you. There's no way you can prevent failure, because if your entire life you look at perfection, then it takes forever to build a product, by the way. Don't do that, because you need to move faster, fail fast, be agile, and really learn from your failure and keep making your failures better for you.
Yeah, make your failures serve you instead of challenging you and stopping you in your path. It's amazing when we think about it. Like you hear things from startup and you hear things from building product, like, oh yeah, learn fast and fail fast, iterate quickly. But when it comes to our personal life, it's so easy to lose sight of that and kind of let the perfectionist. And I think a lot of it is from school as well, where we are conditioned to say, how do I get an A? How do I make sure I hit all the maximum points? So there's always a perfectionist aspect and wanting to tick all the boxes, even though for other topics, we feel more comfortable talking and managing failure and accept it as a fact of life. The last question, which I have for you is, what's a one piece of advice you give to your 20-something-year-old self, maybe someone who is earlier in their career journey and just beginning to explore their path into product management?
The one thing is never to say no to a job description. What I learned, and this is from a lot of my mentors, also what they taught me, is as women, unfortunately, and especially you have to know and be self-aware, as an Asian woman, we are taught to come to this impossible standard too. But when the thing is, if a woman look at a job description and a man take a look at a job description, and you heard that before, you know, and we will say, ooh, I'm only like 7 out of 10. So I'm not going to go there. You know what? Apply for that job. I don't care how many points you have there. The first thing is to train your courage. If you check more than 3 boxes, I'm pretty sure in reality, you check more than like 6 or 7 already. So what you have to do is take rejection as a sign to refine your courage. For something you look for and you see that, apply. Do never, ever, ever, ever yourself say no to yourself, because if you yourself say no, everybody can see it.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really good reminder. Thank you so much for your time. I loved hearing about your journey, and it was so inspiring. I think both, especially as an international student as well, I definitely went through a lot of those same struggles and self-doubt, and just having that extra layer of anxiety on top of an already stressful situation such as job hunting. It can be really tough. So yeah, thank you for sharing your story.
And look at you. So proud.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I'm going to stop. Wonderful. I hope you enjoyed today's interview series, and be sure to check back to hear from the other 7 amazing product leaders. Thank you, and happy Women's History Month.